From the outside, Emily and David had a picture-perfect life. They had been married for 6 years and lived in a beautiful home in an upscale suburb. Emily, a kind-hearted nurse, worked long hours caring for others, always believing that her husband, David, was there for her just as she was for him. David was a successful real estate developer, known for his charm and business acumen. They were the couple people admired. Emily's friends often commented on how lucky she was to have found a man like David. They saw her life as ideal, and for a long time, Emily believed that too. But as the years passed, things started to change. The once affectionate and attentive David grew more distant. His late-night business trips became more frequent, and he always had an excuse. "It's just work, Emily. You know how the real estate market is. Always moving, always needing my attention." David's charm, which had initially made Emily feel special, now felt like a weapon, used to deflect her growing suspicions. Emily wasn't a naturally suspicious person, but the signs were there. It started with the phone calls. David always seemed to leave the room when his phone rang, or he would step outside to take calls, offering vague explanations. "It's just work," he'd say, flashing his perfect smile. But the smile didn't reach his eyes like it used to. Then there were the unexplained expenses, large sums of money withdrawn from their joint account without any explanation. Emily, by nature, was trusting. She wanted to believe in her marriage, in the man she had loved for so long, but David had changed. The emotional distance between them grew wider every day. When Emily would ask him why he was so cold, or why he no longer seemed interested in spending time with her, David's response was always the same. "You're imagining things, Emily." He said it with such confidence, such nonchalance, that she started to doubt herself. Maybe she was imagining things. David was good at gaslighting. He had a way of making Emily feel small, of making her question her own intuition. He would turn her concerns around on her, making her feel guilty for even asking. "You're just stressed because of work, Em. You're tired. That's all it is. You need to stop worrying about me and take better care of yourself." Emily, already exhausted from long shifts at the hospital, began to believe him. She started doubting her instincts, telling herself that she was overreacting, that David would never betray her. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. David was too distant, too secretive, and she felt like she was losing him without even knowing why. One evening, while David was away on yet another business trip, Emily found herself going through their household bills. Normally, David handled their finances, but something about the growing distance between them made her uneasy, and she wanted to understand what was going on. As she flipped through the statements, something caught her eye, a large, unexplained withdrawal from their joint account. It was a significant amount, far more than their usual expenses. David hadn't mentioned anything about it. Curiosity piqued, Emily started digging deeper. She went through months of bank records, finding more and more discrepancies. Large sums of money going to accounts she didn't recognize, payments to hotels she had never stayed in. It was clear that David was hiding something, and the more she dug, the more uneasy she became. Then came the final blow. As she went through David's email, something she had never done before, she stumbled upon a folder labeled Sophie. Her heart raced as she clicked it open, and what she found shattered her world. Explicit messages between David and a woman named Sophie, detailing their plans to meet, their feelings for each other, and the things they had done together. Sophie wasn't just some random fling. David was in love with her. Emily's mind reeled as she read through the emails, each one cutting deeper than the last. But that wasn't all. As she continued to dig, she found that Sophie wasn't the only one. David had a long history of affairs with multiple women over the years. Some of the messages went back to the early days of their marriage. David had been betraying her from the start. She felt sick. The man she had loved, the man she had built a life with, had been lying to her for years. And all the while, he had made her feel like she was the problem. He had manipulated her, made her doubt her own instincts, and used her trust against her. Emily had been the last to know. But instead of collapsing under the weight of the betrayal, Emily made a decision. She wouldn't just confront David. She would destroy him in a way he would never see coming. Emily didn't scream. She didn't cry. Instead, she did something no one would have expected. She played along. If David wanted to play games, she would beat him at his own. For weeks, Emily acted like nothing had changed. She was the picture of the perfect wife. She cooked David's favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, initiated romantic gestures, and even suggested they plan a vacation together. David, completely fooled, thought he had gotten away with everything. He believed Emily was still in the dark, oblivious to his affairs and his lies. But while Emily played the role of the devoted wife, she was busy in the background. She quietly began to gather information, not just about his affair with Sophie, but about every affair. She made copies of emails, tracked the withdrawals from their joint account, and even found evidence of David's shady business dealings. It seemed David wasn't just betraying her. He was betraying his business partners too, embezzling money and covering up his illegal activities. Emily met with a lawyer in secret, documenting everything she had found. She was building a case, not just for a divorce, but for David's complete destruction. She wasn't just going to expose him for the cheating husband he was. She was going to ruin his life. Then one day, Emily made a suggestion that caught David completely off guard. "I've been thinking," she said sweetly one evening over dinner. "I feel like we've been drifting apart. Maybe we should renew our wedding vows." She gazed into his eyes, her voice soft and loving, as if she truly believed in their marriage. David, thrilled at the idea, agreed without hesitation. To him, this was perfect. It would keep up the appearance of their perfect marriage, giving him the freedom to continue his affair with Sophie without raising any suspicions. He believed he had won. Emily, however, had something else planned. They set a date for the vow renewal ceremony, inviting close family and friends. Emily poured all her energy into planning the event. She picked the perfect venue, the most beautiful flowers, and designed her own dress. To everyone around her, Emily looked like a woman deeply in love, excited to renew her vows with the man of her dreams. David was none the wiser. He continued his affair with Sophie, confident that Emily was completely oblivious. In fact, he became even more brazen, spending entire weekends with Sophie while telling Emily he was away on business. Emily didn't flinch. She let him think he was in control. But behind the scenes, Emily was making final preparations for her revenge. She knew that confronting David privately wouldn't be enough. He had humiliated her for years, and she wanted him to feel the same public humiliation. She wanted him to lose everything, just like he had taken everything from her. The day of the vow renewal arrived, and everything was picture perfect. Family and friends gathered at the beautiful venue Emily had chosen, expecting a touching celebration of love and commitment. Emily looked stunning in her gown, standing beside David at the altar, holding his hand. David was beaming, confident that he had everything under control. He glanced out at the crowd of familiar faces, his family, Emily's family, friends, colleagues, and felt a surge of pride. He had played the role of the perfect husband for so long that he believed no one would ever suspect the truth. As the ceremony began, the officiant asked Emily to say her vows. She took a deep breath, her eyes locking with David's. She started off sweetly, just like any bride would at a vow renewal. "David," she said softly, her voice steady. "You've been the love of my life for the past 6 years. I've trusted you, stood by your side through everything. I've always believed in us." She paused, and for a moment David felt a twinge of guilt, but it quickly passed. Emily had no idea what he had been up to, he told himself. "But today," Emily continued, her voice growing colder, "I'm not here to renew my vows. I'm here to tell everyone the truth." The room fell silent. David's smile faded into confusion. "David," Emily said, her voice rising, "for the past few years you've been cheating on me. With Sophie and with many others. I know everything. The secret meetings, the lies, and the money you've stolen from me to fund your disgusting affairs." Gasps echoed through the room as family and friends turned to look at David, whose face had turned pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but Emily cut him off, her voice filled with cold rage. "You didn't just betray me?" she continued, turning to address the crowd. "David has been embezzling money from his clients for years, covering up his dirty business deals. I've handed all the evidence over to the authorities. As we speak, they're investigating his finances. And let me make one thing clear, David. You've lost everything." David's mouth dropped open, shock washing over him as he realized what Emily had done. The entire room was staring at him, judgment and disbelief written on every face. Emily wasn't finished. With a calm smile, she pulled out her final card. "Oh, and Sophie?" she said, looking directly at David. "I sent her everything too. She knows the truth now, just like everyone else here." David stood frozen, his world crumbling around him, as Emily turned her back on him and walked away from the altar, leaving him to face the fallout of his lies and deceit. David's life fell apart faster than even Emily had predicted. The vow renewal ceremony, which he thought would be a celebration of his perfect public image, turned into a public execution of his reputation. Word spread quickly. In a matter of days, everyone in their social circle knew about the affair, the financial deceit, and Emily's stunning revelation. David's colleagues began distancing themselves immediately. Clients started pulling out of deals, afraid of the impending investigation into his shady business practices. He had spent years building his career on a lie, pretending to be an honorable, hard-working man, all while embezzling money and using his position to manipulate others. The authorities wasted no time launching a full investigation into his finances. By the end of the week, David's business partners had cut ties with him, and lawsuits began flooding in. The company he had built from the ground up was dissolving in front of his eyes, leaving him with nothing. What little he had left in savings was being drained to cover legal fees, and he faced the terrifying reality of possible jail time. But the personal devastation hit David the hardest. Sophie was the first to leave. The moment she learned the truth about Emily's vow renewal spectacle, about David's financial ruin, she disappeared. She hadn't been in love with David. She had been in love with the idea of a wealthy man who could support her. Now that he was broke and disgraced, she had no reason to stick around. David tried to reach out to friends for help, but no one would take his calls. He was radioactive, a man who had lied to and manipulated everyone around him. His own family was ashamed of him. His parents, who had always believed in their son's success, couldn't even look at him when the truth came out. They were devastated by the shame he had brought on the family, and though they hadn't publicly disowned him, they distanced themselves as the legal troubles grew worse. Emily, on the other hand, was thriving. Her meticulous planning had paid off. Not only had she exposed David for the liar and cheater he was, but she had done it in a way that left her completely in control. David had no idea that she had already filed for divorce weeks before the vow renewal ceremony. Emily had met with her lawyer long before revealing David's affairs. She made sure every legal step was perfectly in place. The divorce papers had been filed, citing irreconcilable differences and infidelity, and Emily had prepared her case with all the evidence she had gathered: David's financial misdeeds, the money he had funneled into secret accounts, and, of course, the explicit proof of his numerous affairs. David received the divorce papers only a few days after the vow renewal ceremony. By that point, he was already drowning in legal troubles and financial ruin, and Emily's divorce filing was just another blow to his crumbling life. He tried to contest the divorce, hoping to salvage some control over the situation, but Emily had the upper hand. With the overwhelming evidence of his infidelity and financial betrayal, the courts ruled in her favor. In the divorce settlement, Emily took everything. She got the house, the car, and what little was left of their joint savings. The judge even ruled that David would have to pay alimony, but with his business in shambles and his reputation destroyed, Emily doubted he would ever have the means to pay it. But that didn't matter. Emily didn't need the money. She had already won. Once the divorce was finalized, Emily's life transformed. She moved out of the house that had once been filled with memories of betrayal and into a new, smaller place that she made her own. For the first time in years, she felt free. Free from David's manipulation, free from the emotional abuse, free from the lies. Emily even decided to change careers. After years of dedicating herself to nursing, she wanted a fresh start. She took time to focus on herself, traveled to places she had always wanted to visit but never could because of David's controlling ways. Emily found peace in the simplicity of her new life, one without the weight of David's lies dragging her down. The vow renewal ceremony became a legend among their social circle. Everyone talked about the day Emily had publicly humiliated David, exposing his darkest secrets in front of everyone they knew. Some people called her cold for how she had planned and executed her revenge, but Emily didn't care. She had spent years being gaslighted and emotionally abused, doubting herself because of David's manipulation. Now she was stronger than ever, and she didn't need anyone's approval. What do you think about Emily's revenge? Was it justified or did she go too far? Would you have done the same in her position? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more stories of betrayal and justice.